You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for joining me today. As always, we have our weekend house calls coming up. So this is where we get to answer our community's questions each and every week. Really excited to be able to get to today's community questions, all things wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging. So excited to get started. And what I'd like to do is actually jump right into the first question. And the reason is I want to get to as many of your questions this weekend as possible. We've had a lot of questions come in over the past couple weeks. I've been doing a bunch of interviews on some pretty amazing podcasts by other show hosts that are just doing great things in the health field. So I try to promote them and their work whenever possible, whenever I'm able to do that. So if you haven't checked out those shows, I do post them typically in the Facebook group at cabralsupportgroup.com. I also will send them out in my weekly Sunday email. And I'll put them on Instagram as well. So go to stephencabral.com/podcast or just go to instagram.com/Stephen Cabral. And you can check out the latest happenings there as well. Really enjoy those. I have a lot of fun. I'm typically doing about 2 interviews per week, sometimes 3. I actually had just 2 today. And again, just more people, if I'm able to get the message out to more and more people, then, I'm excited about that. I'm able to do my work. So the first question today, though, the first person we're going to help out today, her name is Marina or Marina. It's Marina. It's a long question. So as always, you can read the full question by going to stephencabral.com/701. That's today's show notes page. I'll be linking up all the research, products, recommendations, you name it, right on that page specifically. So with Marina's question, I'm going to give you the cliff notes. She writes in, Dr. Cabral and team, before I start, I'd like to thank you for everything you do. You're such an incredible human being and have inspired me to pursue my education in the medical field to heal and not just mask symptoms. I listen to your podcast every day and have learned so much over the past year. You truly are remarkable, and I wish you the best for you in your practice. Thank you, Marina. Really appreciate that. Or Marina, I'm going to call you. And I love to hear that more and more people are going into the health field. I honestly think that that's one of the most amazing things, amazing careers you can choose for your life, whether you go into the nutrition, personal training, health coaching, or even a naturopathic doctor. All of those things are phenomenal, and the ability to help people is great. So thank you for writing in with that. You're 21. She says 22 years old, going to college right now. She tends to be a very stressed person from her type A perfectionist personality. We know what that's like over here. Aside from being a perfectionist, I also strive for good health, sometimes binge eat, work out 4 to 5 times a week, overindulge sometimes with cookies and ice cream and cake. Learned a lot about my health and try to eat as well as I can. Last 3 months have been pretty stressful. I'm usually irregular when it comes to my menstrual cycle and have not gotten my period, though, since August. It's now been 3 to 4 months. Used to have mild acne a couple years ago, starting to come back. My hair has been falling out lately. It feels like it's thinner, feels like I'm developing dandruff. Let's see what else is going on. Eating some possible food sensitivities. I would appreciate any advice on the topic. Thank you again for all you do. Thanks, and efforts do not go unnoticed, Marina. All right, thank you so much for the question. I know exactly what you're going through. I see many Marinas in my practice each week, and it's part of the society that we live in. It's a go society. You're in college. You're wanting to do well. You're a perfectionist. You want to get good grades. You want to work out. You want to eat well. You also want to have a relationship. You want to go out with your friends. I mean, a lot of people think like college students and high school students and, just kids have it made, right? Not really. I remember, wasn't that long ago, you're stressed in college. There's a lot going on. If you want to do well in school, it's not easy. When you finish one test, you have another test to study for, and it keeps coming and coming and coming. So I totally understand where you're coming from, but that stress is really what's breaking you down. I know that you want to fix your hormones, and I agree, but when you enter into a state of dysmenorrhea, where you're not getting your menstrual cycle each month, the first thing we have to look at, almost like the only thing we need to look at, is stress in the body. Now, is the stress coming from life? Is it coming from relationships, family-based issues? Is it coming from working out too hard, or is the stress coming from not eating enough calories? You need to look at all those specific things. My highest recommendation is to run the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormone test. That will let you know how your thyroid's doing, whether it's overactive or underactive. It will let you know about your adrenals and your cortisol levels, and it will let you know about your hormones. That is absolutely the number one test I recommend for you. Sure, you can do a food sensitivity test. I'd love you to do that. You can run an organic acids test if you'd like, but either the thyroid, adrenal, hormone test, if not the hair tissue mineral analysis. But again, my number one lab for you to run is the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormone. That is the big one. Do search under stress. Do search under thyroid at stephencabral.com/podcast. You'll get lots of other shows to check out on that. However, remember, if you have low thyroid, it's because of your stress right now, that HPA axis and HPT axis dysfunction. So check that out. All right, Zoe is up next. Zoe's asking, hi, Dr. Ball. Thank you for answering my previous wellness question. I'm currently trying to take on board your advice and make the necessary changes in my life and calm my nervous system, eat a lower fat, higher carb diet, and I'm looking to conduct some of a recommended tests soon. On a separate note, I'm thinking about going to India for 10 days, 2 weeks of the new year. I'd like to continue my wellness journey. I've never been to India before. I'd like to learn about the culture, more of Ayurveda, and perhaps the yoga and spiritual side. I realize that this is not strictly a wellness-related question, but I wondered if you had any tips, suggestions, where to go, what to do, as it's my first visit, and I really appreciate your advice and your love of India and Ayurveda. Eventually, I'd love to go to there for a longer stint, but for right now, the max I can take is 2 weeks. Appreciate your thoughts, as always. Best, Zoe. Okay, Zoe, no, definitely, and everyone, ask these questions. I love health practitioner questions. I love any of these Ayurvedic or, my time spent overseas. I don't get to talk about it that much. I try to work it in a little bit to the show where it's, maybe useful. But no, I mean, in the future, this is what I plan to do. I want to take people to India. I want to take people to clinics. I want to work with you going through all of these different Panchakarma-based protocols and everything that I learned. It's amazing. They don't really do it in the US. That's the issue. And it's not always that easy to do it in the United States as well. But no, I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, it's amazing. So I've been all over India. I've been to India 3 times. I've been to Sri Lanka once, which, again, I know that people from Sri Lanka and India would never want to compare the two. And I can agree with that and I can appreciate that. But in terms of my education, it was very similar, okay? Both places were equally amazing. I do have to say that India, though, is unlike most other places in the world, meaning that not only is it totally different, in terms of, I would say, the North and the South, but really the East and the West. And India's its own separate world, really. I mean, there's different dialects, there's different types of people, there's different food in the South. So they're all amazing, but let me give you a couple tips. Kerala is the birthplace of Ayurveda. So what I found by going to Kerala is that it's amazing. It's a little older, meaning that there's a lot of old school clinics there, but it is phenomenal. And I'm very glad that I got to work in Kerala. The clinic that I worked at, I can't recommend. And that's because it's really just for people in the Trivandrum area. It's very difficult to live a Western lifestyle or having grown up that way and then go to this type of clinic. It's very challenging. Sleeping conditions, eating conditions, overall sanitary-based conditions are quite challenging. Now, I'm forever grateful that I got the opportunity to live there, study there, because not only did I learn a lot, it gave me perspective on life, and that was worth everything. That was fantastic. So what would I recommend going to then? Well, in terms of spirituality, there's a place called Kanyakumari, which is the tip of India. The southernmost tip is amazing. That is where the 3 C's come together. And I just thought it was breathtaking, amazing. But again, very different. So I just want to keep this in mind. It's very different than the United States. You're going to see amazing people, amazing culture. You're going to see a lot of poverty. You're going to see and some really challenging things. But again, that's a good reason to go because it gives you new perspective. Okay, but where would I study Ayurveda? Well, Mysore, there's a clinic in Mysore run by Dr. Krishna. I studied the Ayurvedic Pulse methodology. He was one of the top people, also studied under Vasant Lad. He's a medical doctor who practiced in the US and then went back over to India. He has a beautiful clinic there, and I do recommend checking him out. I will see if I can find the clinic name again. I apologize. This is going back just a little bit, and I worked at so many clinics and studied at so many places, but it's the largest, one of the biggest and best higher end clinics in Mysore, Mysore. Dr. Krishna runs that. And then, of course, the foothills of the Himalayas. If you can go up there, that is amazing. That's next level. They have ashrams. You can get panchakarma therapies. You can study yoga. You can do meditation. You can walk in the foothills of the Himalayas. So that is called Dehradun and Rishikesh. Sorry, that was escaping my memory there. But Rishikesh. And Dr. Moriari is who I studied with up there. He is also phenomenal, and can't wait to actually pay him another visit. He was so gracious when I worked directly with him. We went on amazing travels through the Himalayas. I don't want to take too much time going through this, but literally I was on the back of his dirt bike, and we would go into the Himalayas. We would study the herbs. We would look at the herbs. We would be able to pick them out of nature. We would say, okay, this is good for this. This is when this should actually be picked. We use the roots for this. We use the stem for this. We use the leaves for this. We use the fruit for this, of all the different things. Then we're going deep into panchakarma, where he invited me for a meal with his family, got to meet his family. I went back to his former university. I actually did a little work and study in one of the cadaver laboratories. So yeah, I love it. Really do. And can't wait to share more of that. All right. Hopefully that helps. Tony's up next. Hello, Dr. Cabral. Thanks again for taking my question. As I write this, I'm about 3 weeks into the Cabral detox. In early November, I spoke with Caitlin regarding my organic acids test and food sensitivity test results. I've been on point with the diet and the detox. I decided to have testing done and do the detox to get to the root cause of my Meniere's disease, which I've had for about 2 years. Overall, I'm feeling a lot better in the mornings and throughout most of the day. However, around 3 or 4 o'clock, I end up with a little bit of brain fog. It's as if my brain is fatigued and cannot keep up. I sometimes get slightly dizzy as well. My OAT shows, and I'm not going to be able to lab test on the house calls, but I can give you overall advice. One of my chief concerns is my results was a possibility of neuroexcitotoxicity because of the potential long-term effects of it. Since I'm going on 4 weeks into this and still feeling the brain fog and slight dizziness for a portion of the day, I was wondering what your recommendations for me are at this point. As far as Meniere's cases in your practice, what's the average timetable for those to get better after addressing the root causes? Okay, so most things in my practice, to be honest, are about anywhere between 3 and 6 months. So 12 weeks is your first average, 3 to 4 months, 12 to 16 weeks. Why would that be? Well, as I've said before, that's when you're going to get the cell turnover. Okay, so that's only the first round of cell turnover. I know that it seems like some time, and in the grand scheme of things, it's no time at all, 3 months out of your life. But when you're in it, you're in it. And I totally understand that. So you want to get better fast. So it looks like you're doing better in the mornings and you're doing a little bit better until 3 or 4 o'clock. Okay, well, that tells me that something could be going on around this time in terms of what did we just eat for lunch? Because lunch is our big meal that we're having a couple hours before that. Was it incompatible with your body? All right. So we need to look at this. And Tony, I really want you to just start doing variable-based tests. All right. I want you to have a lunch that literally contains no starches. All right. I want you to load up on your veggies. Okay. Do a couple cups of your cooked vegetables if you want. Do a nice piece of protein. Try a vegan, try a vegetarian, try a paleo-based protein on different days. And then add in a couple tablespoons of fat, whether it's avocado or olive oil. Use a little bit of sea salt if you're used to using that. If not, please do try some sea salt because your lightheadedness and fatigue could also be from a lack of electrolytes, a dehydration-based issue as well. I'll talk about that in one moment. But I want you to see, okay, all right, I basically did protein and I did vegetables with some healthy fat. Did you feel better? Try that for 2 to 3 days. If you felt better, okay, well then that could be a protein, a fiber to starch-based issue. And you might have to just do a little bit less starch with that lunch. Okay. Next, you could say, okay, I didn't feel any better. All right, try to eliminate all of the protein altogether at lunch. Try just some starch and some vegetables and some good fat. A lot of fiber, okay? A lot of fiber. We're not talking about sugar. We're talking about some sweet potatoes, some broccoli, some cauliflower, maybe a little bit of rice if you would like, some olive oil. Okay, try that out. How'd you feel with no protein now? Did you feel lighter? Did you feel now less brain fog? Why am I saying this? They're just variable tests. Remember, this isn't for the rest of your life. This is to test variables. If that makes you feel better, well, now you can say, well, there's less digestion energy going on, meaning I don't have to break down all this protein. So now I have more energy for blood flow to the brain. Okay, the next thing I want you to try, and I don't recommend this for the rest of your life, you might try 1 small cup of a green tea after lunch or a small cup of black coffee. Now, again, this isn't for the rest of your life. This is a variable test. This is what I do in my practice. I test, and then I keep testing until the person gets well. There's no such thing as not getting well. Like, you have Meniere's disease. Okay, there's no such thing as not getting well. There's just not. So, okay, if you have the brain fog, because this is different than lightheadedness, if the caffeine helps you after lunch, well, now you say, okay, I did not have an energy to digest my meal, or I was lacking in cortisol-based production. Again, you're not doing coffee for the rest of your life. Now you say, okay, I need more energy in the afternoon. What do I need to do? Okay, well, we can go from coffee to a green tea, which is much, much less. Usually there's only about 42 milligrams of caffeine per cup in green tea. We could wean off to half a cup of coffee, then we could do green tea. And then from there, hopefully you don't need it at all as the body is repairing itself. The other thing I want you to do is make sure you get a really good balance of calcium to magnesium. So if you're not using calcium and magnesium right now, that might be worth taking at least with dinner or before bed. So, Tony, let's start there. Let's figure out the whole lunch thing, and let's keep going from there. I mean, yes, there is neural or neuro excitotoxicity, but do keep in mind, this is an inflammatory-based issue when the body does have toxins in it, whether it's flame retardants and other stuffs from the environment, or whether it is actually cortisol-based metabolites. Another neurotoxicity is heavy metals. So, of course, we in the future may have you do the heavy metal detox as well to help with that. Okay, Tony, bunch of things going on there. So hopefully that's been helping. All right. Oh, and then also you just wrote, I apologize about that. I just had some notes from my team in here. All says, by the way, for those listening who are wondering about your detox, whether it really helps you lose weight or not, let me say it definitely works. Weight loss was not my goal, especially as a hard gainer lifter, but lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. I would say the product is very effective. Thanks again. Oh, okay. So, Tony, thank you for writing that in. My team just did an update. I apologize. I know that it takes, unfortunately, we're taking about 3 weeks to get to people's questions. I apologize. I wish I could get to them faster. It's just we have a lot coming in. So I apologize. Yes, it looks like, Tony, you had already finished your detox. Thank you for that update. Really do appreciate you checking in. Love hearing your results. Tammy's up next. Let's see what Tammy's saying. Hello, Dr. Cabral. I get recurring inflammation of my underarm glands from preteen years. I'm currently in my early 30s. I've changed diets, recently started doing a natural detox. When I was younger, my tonsils would often get inflamed. Then it moved to my underarms. I did a full blood test and urine, and all the results came back fine. Of course, lymphocytes were a bit on the high side due to inflammation at the time, and blood tests were done. I wanted to get a second opinion on what might be triggering this and possible methods of treatment. Thank you for your time and response. Tammy. Okay. So Tammy, when you do blood work and you do the urine-based test at your doctor's office, it's not the same thing as the urine test I talk about. What they do is, and it's very important, I do this in my office sometimes with people as well, they do a urine dipstick-based test. That's going to look at specific gravity. It's going to look at leukocytes. It's going to look at protein and ketones in the urine. All of that is great. I mean, really is, and it should be done. So highly recommend that. However, what I'm recommending for you is the organic acids test. That's a urine-based test you can do right at home. Why do I recommend that? Well, anyone with any type of lymphedema or swelling of the lymph nodes or swelling of the glands, I'm assuming there's some type of stagnation in those lymph nodes or the lymphatic system itself. And I'm wondering, is it coming from candida overgrowth or bacterial overgrowth or some type of leaky gut or intestinal permeability-based condition? The other thing I worry about is poor digestion. So what I would do is I personally would run the organic acids test. I would think about running either the toxicity test for look at environmental-based toxins, or at least the hair tissue mineral analysis test for heavy metal toxicity as well. Now, how do we help with those glands? Well, let's get you some help. So besides the lab tests, I'm going to recommend the Dr. Cabral Detox. I'm not sure the detox that you did, but of course, I absolutely recommend the Dr. Cabral Detox after you do the labs, if you choose to do the labs. And I'm recommending dry brushing. Okay, dry brushing, just gentle dry brushing. And then I'm recommending Epsom soaks, just 1 or 2 cups of Epsom salt and a hot bath as many times a week as possible, ideally before bed. That would be great to help detoxify right through the skin and get a little bit of that magnesium and sulfur into the body. If needed, you could do the infrared sauna. That would be great to sweat out some of those toxicities. And coffee enemas, okay? I don't always recommend coffee enemas, but for someone that might be dealing with some real toxicity issues and their liver seems maybe a little bit backed up. Now, maybe that's not the case with you, but a coffee enema could be quite helpful. Okay, so that's what I recommend. If the organic acids test shows issues, I will give you my recommendations. My health coach will take you through them, and then you'll get to literally just course correct. That's what it's all about, course correct. And all of these things, as I always say, can be corrected and will be corrected. All right, let's do one more question. It's from Elizabeth. Oh, this is a great question. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Wondered what your thoughts are on Dr. Flanagan's Crystal Energy or Mega Hydrate. I'm currently using Cell Food by New Science and wondered if it's similar or these things are even worth using. If I may ask, what are your thoughts on BioLive Gold Liquid Probiotic? Thanks so much for a great podcast. Learning so much. Okay, so let's go into that. Now, Dr. Flanagan's product, Crystal Energy, Mega Hydrate. So very similar to Cell Food, but of course, both companies would say, no, they're different. And yes, they are different. But what do both do? Well, what they're looking to do is create an ionic-based charge. We'll call it, so in technical terms, when we look at blood-based chemistry, all right. So we're looking at, is the blood, the red blood cells, and I actually do this in my office quite often, all the time, actually. And if the red blood cells are sticky, we call it rouleau, okay? Or we call it red blood cell aggregation. When you use products like Cell Food or Crystal Energy or even just trace minerals, okay? So it doesn't have to be one of these. It can, but what we're looking at is we want cellular dispersion. So we don't want the red blood cells sticking together or sticky blood. Again, this is not a naturopathic-based thing, although it's, of course, more naturopathic. But this is used in all sorts of different biochemistry and used in conventional medicine as well, because they're the ones who coined the term rouleau, red blood cell rouleau. So it's essentially sticky blood. It can lead to high blood pressure and fatigue and malaise and skin issues. Well, what Cell Food does, and I know you're using that right now by New Science, is that it contains trace minerals, it contains sulfur, it contains a lot of things that help with what they're talking about is actually dispersing water in the cells or in the body itself, in the plasma. Keep in mind, your blood is 90% water, so that's a big thing to look at. 2/3 of your whole body is water, and your muscles are 70% water, 72%. So, we're looking at a substance that could potentially allow for more flow of energy in the body and more flow of oxygen, as they like to state. Now, there's dispute over these products. There are some studies on them, and the studies look pretty good. And then there are also people who dispute those studies. So here's my take. This is a good supplement to use, and I'll probably do a Friday review on it in the future, but it's not a necessity, meaning that if you're not doing a daily activated multi or something like the daily nutritional support for all your multivitamins and minerals, you have to start there. That's foundational. If you're not then doing a greens powder, which is going to be more powerful than one of these products because you're getting the whole food nutrition from greens that's just simply been juiced and dehydrated, then I would use something like the daily fruit and vegetable blend or your favorite greens. And if you're also not doing something like the daily probiotic support, that's what you need to do first. So those are my foundational products. It's what I call the Dr. Cabral Daily Protocol. And it's because if you're not doing those, then fancy products don't really matter. They really don't, because you don't have a foundation. You can't, you literally can't lay a roof without a foundation. So what you need to do is make sure your body's taken care of for all of its minerals, all of its amino acids, all of its antioxidants, all of its vitamins, all of its whole food nutrition through greens. And then it's gut health. So if you haven't done that, and this is a good way, I think, to wrap this up, this show as well, is that there's so many great products out there. So like people could ask me like, should I use acerola fruit extract? Or what about quercetin? Because I've heard that's great. Both are fantastic. Okay, highly recommend them. Very powerful forms of vitamin C. Very powerful antioxidants. Love them. But are you doing your foundational based work? If you're not, then these other great products don't really matter as much. So yes, use them. Absolutely. If you enjoy them, if it makes the water more palatable as well, which I know it does for a lot of people, then it gets you to drink more water. And that's great as well. So, and the other thing, I'm not going to go into this specific probiotic. Here's the thing. I recommend so many different probiotics. In my practice, we have close to 8 for different people, 8 different probiotics. And then I even have some specialty ones after that. What do I recommend? I recommend a probiotic at different stages for each person. So I can't recommend one for you specifically. If you're on my Candida protocol, you know that you don't use probiotics for your first month. You use something called a non-pathogenic based yeast. Okay. Then you move up to acidophilus. Then you move up to a multi-strain, mainly small intestinal based one. Then after that, you move on to the daily probiotic support. If you have mild yeast-based issues, you're going to use something called the clean gut probiotic, which helps with mild candida issues, or anyone who just wants to clean out a little bit of yeast, but that doesn't think they have massive overgrowth, okay? So it has some Saccharomyces boulardii, and then it has a bunch of great strains shown to not only work on balancing gut flora, but also repopulating the gut. Then I have liquid-based ones. I have so many different brands. So what I don't recommend, though, in your probiotic is that I don't like it to have things like FOS, things like inulin. And the reason is those are fillers. Those are not good for a lot of people. And sometimes they come from really cheap fillers that I don't want us to see putting in people's gut. So that's what I'm recommending. That's on my website as well. So I'm happy to link those up as well. But really, remember, it's all about education. So hopefully in that answer, I didn't promote anything, but what I did was teach you that if you have bacterial overgrowth, you don't want any probiotics. If you have mild yeast overgrowth, well, then use the Clean Gut Probiotic because it has some Saccharomyces boulardii that will help push out the pathogenic yeast. And if you have full-blown bloating, gas, gut-based issues, fatigue, autoimmune, or you ran an organic acids test and it said that you had high yeast or bacterial overgrowth, well, then you're going to use the Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol, which goes from no probiotics to a single strain small intestinal-based probiotic that's also acid-based that will help remove a lot of that Candida as well. And then we go more towards the multi-strains after that. So again, it's about education because if you're educated, if you know, then you know how to choose the right probiotics for you and your whole family. And then you can share all that great information with your friends and you can be the health coach of all your friends, which I always love people to be. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in today. I'll be back tomorrow answering more of our community's questions. Stay tuned for that. Take care.
Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.